Hi Monty, how you feeling today?
Hey, I'm good. It's crisp out here. It's a good day for a walk and a chat.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm liking it.
So you're here in New York because of your book tour, right?
Yes. Yep, got a couple events here in New York City. My book, I never thought of it that way, How to Have Fearlessly Curious Conversations in Dangerously Divided Times. Bit of a mouthful, but a fun one. It launched on March 8th, so earlier this month.
Fearlessly Curious.
Yeah.
I watched a TED Talk of yours where you talked about we tend to other people or make stories up about people in the absence of knowing about them. So there's this like nature abhors a vacuum. So I wonder, like, how do we make a habit of being curious?
Oh yeah, and that is kind of the big question. There's so many misperceptions that we have about each other, and social science keeps pointing that out, in particular around the political divide. It's like this reality distortion field that just, when you look across the divide, you think you see what's there, but you don't. And we have so many messages and things in our media, and then in our immediate surroundings, and the conversations we have tend to exaggerate and just warp the people who are really there. So, you know, that's like a quick summary of why this is so important. But the way to make a habit of curiosity, you know, a lot of people think that it has to be the hardest possible thing, that you have to go talk to a Nazi tomorrow or something, that's the work. But it's not. It can start with just more curious conversations with yourself. So anytime that you catch an assumption that you have about another person, you know, oh wow, that person is older and white and has a cross around her neck. That's it, she's a totally evangelical Christian. She's gonna, you know, hate whatever I say is a liberal, or vice versa. You make some, you know, that person's got a tattoo and a piercing and is in the city, and this is what they believe, and I know it already. No, you don't. You really, really don't. And you have to allow people to surprise you. But as soon as you catch yourself an assumption, if you turn into an assumption into a question in your own mind, that's the first step right there.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I know you've, in your book, documented lots of examples in your work of Braver Angels, being, I think, storyteller-in-chief. Is that your title?
It's not the official title, but sometimes it's my unofficial title.
So,
chief storyteller.
I wonder if you could share a story of a person who really, you know, their work and their effort and their curiosity really moved you.
Yeah, oh man, there's several. One is Beth Mallow. She's down in Tennessee, and she's a doctor. And during all things COVID and pandemic, the school district near her in Tennessee was just in an uproar over mask mandates in schools. And so people were telling her, you've got to go talk at this, you know, school board meeting and make the case for masks, please. You know, we really need your help, like the folks who wanted to see a certain outcome. And she said, okay, sure. And she's a member of Braver Angels, and she thought, okay, well, but before I do that, I really don't understand a lot of the anti-mask position. So it just so happened that through her network, she knew some folks who knew some folks, and she got connected with an activist for the anti-mask side. And so she met her for coffee a bit before the meeting. And when she met this woman for coffee, she had already drafted what she would say, more or less. Like, she was really kind of thinking about it. And she had drafted what she would say. And part of what she was going to say was to really make the case, you know, to folks who are anti-mask, that we have to care for our community, that we have to care for the health of our community, that this is an important value. And after she had the conversation with the woman who advocates against masks in schools, she realized something really important, that she had assumed that the side that doesn't want masks in schools doesn't care about community. And what a condescending type of assumption.
I see.
And she realized, no, she totally cares about community.
Right.
She just has this value around liberty that is really, really strong and kind of trumps some of these other things in ways that aren't familiar to me.
Right.
And so she changed what she was going to say to make sure that she didn't make that assumption, the sort of condescending assumption that people who oppose what she supports must not value the community that she loves.
I see. That's really powerful, and it sounds like there's two things happening at least, where we come with a script and a narrative, already written down literally or not, in our mind.
Yeah.
And then it requires a little bit of effort to ditch that, to pivot.
Yes.
Some bravery,
Yes.
and then just be present and actually hear what somebody has to say. You might discover, hey, you share the same values. So
Yeah.
how is that, like, is that right to say that, like, we need to discover mutual shared values? And is that part of the process?
Yeah, I do think so. And I know that it can seem impossible at a lot of points. I have a chapter in my book that's all about values. And in my research, I realized we look at values all wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of folks say, I think this is a popular line these days, I can't talk to those people because
Right.
they don't share my values.
Right.
But look at it a different way.
Yeah.
They do share your values. They just stack them in a different order for different issues. So to go back to the COVID example, someone who is, for vaccine mandates, is thinking about health, is thinking about caring for others, and someone who might be against vaccine mandates, they're thinking about freedom and the ability to choose our own, what we do with our bodies and all kinds of things like that. Both those values are good, right? The person who is for vaccine mandates is not against the value of freedom.
Right.
And the person who is against vaccine mandates is not against the value of caring for other people.
Yeah.
They share the values. It's just that each tough issue puts good values into tension with each other. And it's only when we open ourselves to that possibility and look for that goodwill, struggle,
Right.
and tension between values that we can see, the other person is coming to this different conclusion, but not because they hate this thing that I know is important.
So in bringing people together, the example of the teacher basically had to sit down with somebody because that was, her superintendent was probably asking her to do that.
Oh, you mean the doctor who spoke at the school board meeting?
Oh, the doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, good.
It's part of her job, right? And so I wonder if you're talking like to a family member, what's a quick way to start, kind of bridging across the divide.
Yeah.
Is it past the mashed potatoes and, don't pass the judgment?
Yeah, I like that.
or what's like maybe if you have if there's one thing that people could do.
Yeah, the one thing that I think is super powerful is to ask how, not why. So the question why is a wonderful and very curious question, but here's the problem. In contexts of distrust and suspicion, such as what exists in the political divide, why sounds like an accusation. It can put people on the defense. It can make them feel they're on trial. And so what they'll do, if you ask why do you believe that? Someone can hear it in sort of an aggressive and hostile tone that you may not intend, and they may go and reach for the talking points that they can shelter under, rather than put out their actual genuine perspective vulnerably. And so they're not going to be honest, and you're going to insist reasons to each other and push and get nowhere. But if you ask, how did you come to believe what you believe? You're asking people to share their story. And they are the world's best expert on their story. So there's going to be fewer facts to, get confounded around or whatever. They're giving you a tour through the path that they took to get to their views. And you get to follow along, and inevitably, most of the time, you will find something in that path that you relate to. Some pain, some struggle, some excitement, some passion. And that will begin to stitch you together enough that you'll be able to reach for harder things in your conversation to try to understand about each other.
Really like that. Just a simple word shift, simple language shift to open up a lot of possibilities. I want to ask you more about that in our longer interview, but just thank you for this quick little preview of what you're working on.
Yeah, totally. And thank you for this walk. It's lovely. My nose is cold and I like it.
Thanks so much.
Totally.
Yep.